In Philippians 3, verses 13 and 14, Paul gives a formula that I think is tremendous for us as we approach this new year. He said, this one thing I do. What do you do? What is it, Paul? This one thing you do. He said, I forget the things which are behind, and I reach forth unto those things which are before. Isn't that a great philosophy? I forget the things which are behind, and I reach forth to those things which are before. I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. And so let's forget the things of 2010. They're over, and we can worry about them 24 hours a day for the next year, and we can change nothing in the past. You can only change that which is in the present. And so march optimistically toward those things before us in 2011. You see, there's an untrod pathway that lies ahead of us. None of us have walked it. And so every step is a new step. It's kind of like Joshua said. I know the context is different, but you haven't passed this way before. We haven't passed this way before. Every second is a new step into a new adventure, into a new world that we have never stepped. It's kind of like someone compared to like a newly fallen snow. You get up in the morning and there's a beautiful white covering everywhere. And nobody, no animal, nothing has taken a step in it. And you say, what a beautiful sight that is. Well, isn't that about what a new year is? We haven't taken a step into it, just briefly. And so what lies ahead of us? Oh, the possibilities of the things which lie ahead. And here's what I want you to think about. What are the good things that lie ahead? Don't be worrying about the bad things that might lie ahead. Think of the good things that may lie ahead of us. Now, I know there's also the uncertainty of the times before us, and I would think, and I put up here perhaps, but I think perhaps we are living in unprecedented times. I know for one thing, like the terror threats. You know, we haven't known that but the last 10, 11 years. And progressively getting worse and worse. No society has seen it where the world has a capability of wiping each other out by nuclear power. Literally obliterating it. Economic downturn that we hear so much about. Job insecurity we hear so much about. Sicknesses and deaths and family problems. These things are going to happen. There are going to be sicknesses. There are going to be death. There are going to be family problems. Hopefully this won't be, but there's a possibility of it. But there are going to be sicknesses and death, and we know that. Don't worry about it. Concentrate on what we do have and be grateful for it and live every moment to the best. Think about that wonderful wife or husband that you've been blessed with. Think about those wonderful children you have. Think about what you have, the church family. Think about all the good things that we have, instead of worrying about those unprecedented times that may be ahead of us. And then, here's the real emphasis I want to make. In a changing world ahead of us, there's an unchanging God that's going to be there for us. That is, if we're Christians, God is going to make this year a wonderful year. Look at these verses. Malachi 3:6. I am the Lord, I change not. Isn't it nice to put our trust in something that changes not while living in a changing world? Then again, the emphasis in Hebrews 13:8. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and yea, forevermore. That's stability. Hebrews 13:5, he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So I hope that will give us confidence as we approach this new year. No, we don't know what's ahead. All of us dread that we might get that telephone call like I did a few months ago with my brother. We're going to get those calls, and we're going to have some ups and downs in life. They're going to happen. But there's a God that's going to stand by us, and we're going to be able to make it just fine if we'll keep our allegiance totally and our trust totally in this unchanging God. Now this God, you see, he sees all things, he knows all things, he has all power. So he can do it. We just need to trust him. He says there isn't a bird out here that doesn't fall to the ground without him knowing it. Did you see on the news recently in Beebe, Arkansas, where all those birds fell from the sky? I mean, saw that. Well, the town is just obliterated with it. I mean, all over the streets and the yards, birds, those red-winged blackbirds have died And at this point, they don't know what has caused it. Well, every one of those that fell, God knew when they fell. That's how intimately He knows His creation. And so there's not a sparrow, 2 sparrows sold for a farthing, a little small amount of money, but one of them shall not fall on the ground, that your Father doesn't know it. And of course He knows all the hairs of a head. Knows how many hair you went to bed with last night and how many you got up with this morning. And if you lost one, He knows it. And so, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered. If He knows that, He's big enough to create the universe, to sustain the universe. Surely He's big enough to take care of my problem and your problem that might arise in 2011. If we'll turn our lives over to Him and trust Him totally, we can live in such a wonderful peace that passes all understanding. Further about this God, you see He's going to work all things together for our good. Now, there are little qualifications in this verse, and I know it. We know, that's confidence. We're not guessing, but we know that how many things, all things, work together for good. To whom? To them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. And that's why I so strongly beseech you this morning, if you're not in Christ, become a Christian. Become one of these falls in this category, those whom He loves, and those that love God, and those who are called according to His purpose. 2 Thessalonians 2:14, you're called by my gospel. Let the gospel call you to this Lord and this Christ, this God, that can work all things together for your good. To them that love Him. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. You remember that from John 10:14. So God will be there for us. And that's the message I want us to see. This God has all power. Notice this verse in Ephesians 3:20. Now unto Him that's able to do exceeding abundantly above. Could you find 3 more words more expressive than that? Exceeding abundantly above all of that which we ask or think. Notice this. Think. According to the power that works in us. God has the power. Trust Him is what I'm trying to say. So let's approach this new year optimistically. First, I'd like to suggest that we look around and give thanks for what we have. In everything, give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. So in order to have a great year, we've got to be appreciative. Look back and just look around. Sometimes I get up in the morning and I give my thanks before I eat, and I see the beautiful day. Liz sometimes hasn't gotten up, and I thank you for a wonderful wife that's still upstairs that I'll be seeing in a few moments when she comes down. You think about your family. I think about having the blessing of Josh and them living across town. I think about the children in Tennessee and your relatives here and the brethren. And you just begin to name and on and on and on, and health to get out of bed and take that first step. You can just add it up and you feel so wonderful. Why? Because you've looked and thought about all your blessings. Now with that, you can handle the day. You can handle the day. In everything, give thanks. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus, and I'll almost guarantee you'll have a wonderful 2011 if you put this great emphasis in your life and look for the good, look for the things to be grateful for. Then lay aside every weight that's holding us back. I hope you were listening to Isaac, and thank you, Isaac, for a good job of reading from Hebrews chapter 12. About leaving those weights behind. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with a great cloud of witnesses, meaning those persons in chapter 11, those Old Testament characters, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily beset us, which is probably faith, alluding to chapter 11, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. So looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, despised the shame, and is now set down on the right hand of God. See, Jesus was looking ahead. That's how He could live such a wonderful life here, an optimistic life, because He was looking for the joy that was ahead of Him. And I suggest the same with us. We're on a race from earth to heaven. We're in the race. Thank God we're in the race. And there's a goal ahead of us. And when those persons train for those contests, what they would do, they would put some weights on their legs to train. And so with weights, it would impede them, obviously, but they train with that. Then come the day to run the race. They would take those weights off, and they felt so light, like a deer. And so they could really run those races. And so the message that God has given, get the weights off of ourselves, so we can run this race that's ahead of us. And the goal is heaven. There's Jesus out ahead, and you're letting nothing deter you from reaching that goal. Nothing. Not going off go on this side road and this side road like a rabbit, like a dog chasing a rabbit. But we have our focus on heaven, a focus on Christ. We take the weights off, and we run toward heaven.